My parents told me to pack my things when I told them I was pregnant and I was taken in by my uncle. But when I finally turned things around, my parents came back, trying to take away my daughter in the most extreme way possible. So I retaliated with the exact same thing. Growing up, I was told to never ask about my Uncle Mark. Every time I did, my mom would say, "That man is no longer part of this family." When I asked why, my dad just shook his head and muttered something about sin and shame. We went to church twice a week. I wore dresses down to my ankles, and anything outside the word was forbidden. No dating, no dancing, no questions. The only thing worse than disobeying God was dishonoring the family name. So when I turned 17 and started sneaking around with my boyfriend, a senior, I told myself it wasn't wrong. He said he loved me, that we were soulmates, that if I didn't want to do it, he'd wait. But the waiting never came. He pushed. I gave in. I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know that love wasn't supposed to feel like pressure. A month later, I missed my. Yet another week later, I was staring at two pink lines in a gas station, bathroom stall, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the test. When I told him, he went silent. Then he said I'm not ready to be a dad. I never heard from him again. But that was nothing compared to what happened when I told my parents my mom cried. Like I had died. My dad just stared at me and said, "Pack your things." They called me a disgrace. Said I was tainted, that I was trying to ruin their lives with my filth. I slept in a park that night with everything I owned, shoved into a gym bag by morning. My aunt had posted about me on Facebook. For our family, sometimes the devil gets in too deep. Every comment was a sermon. Every like was a nail in my coffin. Then I got a message. It was from Uncle Mark. The profile photo was a man with a silver beard, smiling next to a golden retriever. He wrote, "You don't know me, but I know you. And I think we both know what it's like to be erased. You have a place to stay if you want it." I stared at the screen, my chest caving in. I replied, "Uncle Mark." He answered yes. And no matter what they say, I never stopped being family. Picked me up an hour later. I hadn't seen him since I was 4. His apartment smelled like lemon and books. He handed me a key and said, "Spare bed is yours. Bathroom's through there. No judgment allowed in this house." I broke down crying. Later that night, I found a photo in the hallway. It was me, age 5, in a pink tutu. He kept it all these years. We sat on the couch, me with swollen eyes, him with gentle patience. "They said you were dangerous," I whispered. He chuckled. "I was just gay. They said you abandoned us." Number, I was told not to come back. I asked him why he reached out. He looked at me like it was obvious. Because you needed someone to believe you deserve more. Over the next few months, he taught me how to budget, how to apply for prenatal care, and how to cook something other than instant ramen. He never asked questions I wasn't ready to answer. Never judged the stretch marks or the night terrors. He just made space for my pain, my healing, my future. At 7 months pregnant, I got a call from my mom. "Uncle's filling your head with lies," she spat. "You're ruining this family." "No," I said. "You already did that." She hung up. But Mark didn't. He was there when I screamed through contractions. He held my hand while I cried in the hospital. He took the first photo of me holding my daughter and said, "She looks like hope." The day we came home from the hospital, I found a gift on the kitchen table. It was a framed photo of all 3 of us. He smiled at me and said, "You don't owe anyone shame." Now my daughter's nursery is painted sunflower yellow. Mark reads to her every night. For the first time, I don't feel broken. I felt at peace, or at least it was peace, until my parents came back into the picture. I was just getting used to our new normal. My daughter Lily was 3 months old, and I was finally figuring out how to function on 4 hours of sleep. Uncle Mark had been amazing through everything. He'd even helped me get my GED while I was pregnant, studying with me late into the night when my back hurt too much to sleep. He'd quiz me on math problems while I folded laundry, discuss history, as we prepared dinner, making education fit into the cracks of our busy lives. One morning, I was feeding Lily when my phone buzzed. I nearly dropped it when I saw my dad's name on the screen. Hadn't heard from either of my parents since that last call with my mom. I let it go to voicemail. Then he called again and again. Finally, I answered, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "What do you want?" I tried to sound tough, but my voice cracked. Lily squirmed in my arms, sensing my tension. My dad cleared his throat. He told me they'd been doing a lot of praying, that the church elders had counseled them about forgiveness, that they wanted to meet their granddaughter. I sat there, stunned. Part of me wanted to hang up. Another part desperately wanted my parents back, wanted Lily to have grandparents, wanted to believe people could change. Told Uncle Mark about the call that night. He was chopping vegetables for dinner, his hands pausing mid-slice. The kitchen was warm with the smell of garlic and onions, a stark contrast to the cold feeling spreading through my chest. "What do you want to do?" he asked, not telling me what to do, just asking. That was his way. He nodded, putting down the knife. "They did, and you don't owe them anything. But if you want to try, I'll support you." He wiped his hands on a dish towel and pulled me into a hug, the kind that made me feel like maybe everything would be okay. After 3 days of going back and forth, I agreed to meet them at a coffee shop near our apartment. I picked a public place on purpose. Wasn't ready to let them know where we lived. I dressed Lily in her cutest outfit, a tiny yellow dress with matching socks, partly to show them what they'd missed, partly as armor. I spent extra time on my own appearance too, wanting to look put together, successful, like their rejection hadn't broken me. They were already there when I arrived. My mom gasped when she saw Lily. My dad stood awkwardly, his hands fidgeting with his hat. I sat down across from them, keeping Lily close to my chest. Physical barrier between them and us. The conversation was stiff at first. They asked about Lily's birth, about her sleeping habits, about her name. I gave short answers, waiting for the judgment to start. But it didn't come. Instead, my mom started crying, mascara running down her cheeks and dark rivulets. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream at them for abandoning me when I needed them most. Another part just wanted my mom to hold me like when I was little, to stroke my hair and tell me everything would be all right. They asked if they could hold Lily. I hesitated, then carefully passed her to my mom. Watching her cradle my daughter made something in my chest twist. This was what should have happened months ago. A hospital room filled with flowers and balloons, not in a sterile coffee shop with tension thick enough to cut. The meeting ended with them asking to see us again. I said I'd think about it. As I was leaving, my dad asked where I was staying. I told him I was with Uncle Mark. His face darkened immediately, the familiar look of disapproval settling into the lines around his mouth. "Uncle Mark has been more of a parent to me and Lily than either of you," I snapped, taking Lily back from my mom. Her tiny body felt warm against mine, grounding me. I left without another word. I was shaking by the time I got back to the apartment. Uncle Mark took one look at my face and opened his arms. I collapsed into them, still holding Lily, who had somehow slept through the entire confrontation. Over the next week, my parents called and texted constantly. They apologized for my dad's comment, said they just wanted to be part of our lives. My mom sent pictures of my old room, now set up with a crib and baby toys. "We're ready whenever you are," she wrote. Messages came at all hours, a constant ping that made my stomach clench each time. I showed the messages to Uncle Mark. He frowned, scrolling through them. "Something feels off," he said. "They're pushing too hard, too fast," I nodded. That's what was bothering me too, but the pull of having my family back was strong. I agreed to another meeting, this time at their house. Uncle Mark offered to drive me, but I told him I'd be fine. I needed to do this on my own. When I arrived, the house looked exactly the same. Same floral curtains, same Bible verses on the walls, same smell of my mom's cinnamon candles. It was like stepping back in time, except now I had Lily on my hip. My parents seemed different at home, more confident. My mom had prepared all my favorite foods. My dad showed me the nursery he'd set up. It was beautiful with a white crib and pink walls. "For when you're ready to come home," he said, squeezing my shoulder. My mom joined us, smiling. "We've been talking to Pastor Jim. He thinks it would be best if you and Lily move back home. We can help raise her properly in the church." Felt my blood run cold. "Move back home," I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. Lily squirmed in my arms, sensing my tension. "Yes, sweetheart," my mom said, her voice honey sweet. "We've already spoken to the church elders. They agree that with proper guidance, you can be forgiven for your indiscretion." She reached for Lily and I instinctively stepped back. "I have a life now," I said. "I'm studying for college entrance exams. I have a job interview next week." Uncle Mark had helped me apply for a part-time position at the library near our apartment. The hours worked with Lily's schedule and they had childcare benefits. My dad's face hardened. "A job? College? That's not what you need right now. You need structure and spiritual guidance." I looked around the nursery again, noticing things I'd missed before. A framed Bible verse above the crib about obedience. A small bookshelf filled with religious children's books. No toys that encouraged imagination or creativity. Just the same restrictive environment I'd grown up in. "Appreciate the offer," I said carefully, "but Lily and I are doing well where we are." My mom's smile faltered. "With that man? He's not family anymore, Rebecca. He chose his lifestyle over God's word." I felt my cheeks flush with anger. "His name is Mark and he took me in when you threw me out." The room went silent. My dad stepped closer, his voice dropping to that quiet, dangerous tone I remembered from childhood punishments. "We made a mistake. We're trying to fix it, but you need to come home now." The way he said it, not a request but a command, sent chills down my spine. I told them I needed to think about it and left quickly, my heart pounding. I strapped Lily into her car seat and drove away, checking my rearview mirror the whole time like they might follow us. When I got back to Uncle Mark's, I was still shaking. I told him everything while he made us tea, his face growing more concerned with each detail. "They're trying to control you again," he said simply, sliding a mug toward me, "and now they want to control Lily too." I nodded, tears welling up. I wanted so badly to believe they'd changed. Mark sat beside me, his voice gentle. "People can change, but it takes time and real effort. This feels more like they want things back on their terms." That night, after putting Lily to bed, I sat on my bedroom floor and cried. I mourned the family I wished I had, the acceptance I'd never get from them. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from my mom. "Mr. Jim wants to meet with you tomorrow. We'll pick you up at 10. I didn't respond. The next morning, I woke up to 6 missed calls and a dozen messages, each more urgent than the last. By noon, my dad was threatening to come to Mark's apartment. I finally texted back that I wasn't ready to meet with their pastor and need space. The response came immediately. "This isn't about what you want anymore. It's about what's best for the baby." Mark found me staring at my phone, my face pale. He read the messages and frowned. "This is escalating too quickly." He said, "I don't like it." I nodded, feeling sick. "What do they think they're going to do? They can't just take Lily." Mark's expression was grim. "Actually, they might try. I've seen this before in my community. Religious families sometimes use the courts to get custody of grandchildren if they believe the parent is unfit." My stomach dropped. "Unfit? I'm a good mom." "I know that," he said quickly. "But they could try to paint you as unstable, homeless before Lily was born, living with," he hesitated. "Consider morally corrupt?" I hadn't considered that. In their eyes, living with my gay uncle probably seemed worse than being a teenage mom. The thought made me furious. "What should I do?" I asked. "Document everything," Mark said firmly. "Save every text, every voicemail, and maybe we should talk to someone about your legal rights." The next day, while Mark watched Lily, I met with a family law attorney he knew through a friend. Her name was Janet, and her office was small but warm, with plants in every corner and children's drawings pinned to a bulletin board. Told her everything from being kicked out to the recent pressure to move back home. Janet listened carefully, taking notes. "Unfortunately, this isn't uncommon," she said when I finished, "but you have rights. You're Lily's mother, and unless there's evidence of abuse or neglect, your parents have no legal claim to her." I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. "So they can't just take her?" "Not legally," Janet said. "But that doesn't mean they won't try to pressure you or manipulate the situation." She advised me to continue documenting everything, and to be very careful about letting them spend time alone with Lily. On my way home, I stopped at a coffee shop to clear my head. I was stirring sugar into my latte when someone slid into the seat across from me. I looked up to find Pastor Jim, my parents' spiritual leader, watching me with what he probably thought was a compassionate expression. "Rebecca," he said, "I'm glad I found you." My heart raced. "How did you know I was here?" He waved dismissively. "Your mother mentioned you like this place." It was a lie. I'd never been here before today. Had they been following me? Pastor Jim leaned forward. "Your parents are very concerned. They feel you're being influenced by unhealthy forces." His eyes narrowed slightly. "They tell me you're living with your uncle, the one who turned his back on God's plan." I gripped my coffee cup tighter. "I'm not having this conversation," I said, starting to gather my things. "Your parents only want what's best for you and the child." He continued as if I hadn't spoken. "Prepared to help you raise her in a godly home. All you need to do is repent and return to the fold." I stood up, slinging my bag over my shoulder. "My daughter has a name, it's Lily, and we're doing just fine without your help." As I walked away, he called after me. "Pride comes before a fall, Raka. Think about what's at stake." His words followed me all the way home. I told Mark about the encounter, and he looked troubled. "They're escalating," he said. "First texts, then ambushing you in public." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept checking on Lily, reassuring myself she was safe. Around 2 a.m., my phone lit up with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "We're praying for Lily's soul. Every day she spends in that sinful environment puts her in danger." I showed Mark in the morning, my hands shaking. He took one look and said, "We're changing your number today." Over the next week, things got worse. My parents showed up at the grocery store while I was shopping. They appeared at the park where I took Lily for fresh air. Each time, they acted like it was a happy coincidence, but their eyes were cold cold, calculating. They always asked to hold Lily. I always refused. Then came the Facebook posts. My mom shared old photos of me as a child, captioning them with things like, praying for my lost daughter and innocent granddaughter, and Satan works through those closest to us. Church members commented with prayers and offers to help bring them home. One afternoon, I was pushing Lily in her stroller when a woman approached us. She introduced herself as Barbara from my parents' church. Before I could respond, she was telling me how worried everyone was, how the congregation was raising money to help with the baby, how they all wanted me to come to my senses. I hurried away, looking over my shoulder the whole way home. I told Mark he suggested we stay with his friend Steven for a few days, just until things calmed down. Steven lived in a secure apartment building across town. We packed quickly, throwing essentials into duffel bags. As we were loading the car, my parents pulled up. My dad got out, his face thunderous. "Where do you think you're going with our granddaughter?" Mark stepped between us. "They're coming with me for a visit. We'll be back in a few days." My dad's eyes narrowed. "You've poisoned her against us." "Against God. No one's poisoned anyone," Mark said calmly. "Rebecca is an adult making her own choices." My mom joined us, her eyes fixed on Lily in my arms. "Please, Rebecca, just come home. We can work this out as a family." "Mark is my family too," I said firmly. My dad's face contorted with anger. "That man is an abomination. He's corrupting you and that innocent child." Mark flinched but stood his ground. "I think you should leave now." "Or what?" My dad sneered. "You'll call the police? Tell them what?" "That we want to save our granddaughter from living in sin." A neighbor walking his dog slowed down, watching us curiously. My dad noticed and lowered his voice, but his eyes were still blazing. "This isn't over," he said, pointing at Mark. "We won't let you destroy another life." They left, but the encounter shook me to my core. We still went to Steven's, driving a roundabout route to make sure we weren't followed. His apartment was small but cozy, with a spare room he quick cleared for us. That night, I barely slept, jumping at every sound. The next morning, Mark got a call from our neighbor Heather. Someone had broken into his apartment. Nothing valuable was taken, but my room and Lily's nursery had been ransacked. Clothes were thrown everywhere. Lily's crib mattress slashed open, photos torn from frames. The police came, took statements, but seemed uninterested. Probably just kids looking for cash or electronics. The officer suggested, despite Mark's insistence, that nothing was stolen. Said they'd file a report, but I could tell from their expressions that they didn't consider it a priority. I sat on Steven's couch that night, numb with fear. "They're not going to stop, are they?" I whispered to Mark. He shook his head grimly. "I don't think so. Not until they get what they want." "Which is Lily," I said, watching my daughter sleep peacefully in the portable crib Steven had borrowed from a friend. "And you," Mark added, "back under their control." The next day, I got an email from Janet, the lawyer. She'd received a concerning call from someone claiming to be from Child Protective Services, asking questions about my case. When she pressed for credentials, the caller hung up. "Be vigilant," Janet warned. "This sounds like someone fishing for information." Parents' tactics were getting more desperate. Mark suggested we stay with Steven a bit longer while he had the locks changed at his apartment and a security system installed. I agreed, too scared to argue. 3 days later, I was giving Lily a bath in Steven's tub when my phone rang. It was my mom, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. Between gasps, she told me my dad had had a heart attack. He was in the hospital. Doctors weren't sure if he'd make it. "Please come," she begged. "He needs to see you and Lily just in case." My stomach twisted with guilt and suspicion. "Which hospital?" I asked. She named the regional medical center across town. I told her I'd try to come soon and hung up, my hands trembling. I called Mark immediately, explaining the situation. "It could be true," he said cautiously, "but it could also be a trap." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "I know, but what if it's real? What if he dies and I didn't go?" Mark was silent for a moment. "Let me call the hospital first, just to confirm he's actually there." I agreed, finishing Lily's bath while I waited. 5 minutes later, Mark called back. "There's no patient by your dad's name registered there," he said gently. The relief and anger hit me simultaneously. "They lied about my dad having a heart attack. Who does that?" "People desperate to get what they want," Mark said grimly. I called my mom back, my voice shaking with rage. "There's no record of dad at the hospital." There was a pause. Then her voice came through, cold and clear. "We had to try something. You won't answer our calls. You won't let us see Lily, because you're stalking us. You broke into Mark's apartment. We did no such thing," she said. There was something in her tone that told me she was lying. "We just wanted to check on Lily's living conditions." "Stay away from us," I said, and hung up. That night, I had a nightmare about my parents snatching Lily from her crib. I woke up gasping, checking frantically to make sure she was still there. She was, sleeping soundly with her tiny fist curled near her face. I watched her breathe for nearly an hour before I could calm down enough to sleep again. The next morning, I had 3 voicemails from unknown numbers. Each was from a different church member, telling me how worried my parents were, how they just wanted to help, how I was breaking my mother's heart. The last one was from Pastor Jim himself, his voice ominous. "The Lord works in mysterious ways, Rebecca. Sometimes he must break us to remake us. Your parents are prepared to do whatever it takes to save that child's soul." I played the messages for Mark and Steven over breakfast. Steven, who had been quietly supportive throughout our stay, finally spoke up. "This is getting scary. These people sound like they're in a cult." Mark nodded. "It's not far off. Some of these ultra-conservative churches operate that way. Total control, isolation from outsiders, threats of divine punishment for disobedience." I pushed my cereal around the bowl, no longer hungry. "What do? We can't hide forever." Mark reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "We fight back, legally." That afternoon, we met with Jan again. I played her the voicemails and showed her the texts. She took notes, her expression growing more concerned with each message. "This is harassment," she said finally. "You can file for a restraining order. It won't stop them completely, but it creates legal consequences if they continue." "Will that be enough?" I asked. Janet sighed. "Honestly, people like this often don't respect legal boundaries if they believe they're doing God's work, but it creates a paper trail, which is important if things escalate further." We filed the paperwork that day. Felt a small sense of relief, taking action instead of just reacting. But that night, as I was rocking Lily to sleep, my phone buzzed with a text from my dad. "We know where you are. We're coming for her." I showed Mark, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. He immediately called Steven, who was working late, warning him not to come home alone. Then he called Janet, who advised us to call the police if my parents showed up. We turned off all the lights, except one small lamp, and waited. Every car that drove by made me jump. Every sound in the building had me checking the locks. Around midnight, headlights swept across the living room wall as a car parked outside. I peeked through the blinds and saw my parents' sedan. "They're here," I whispered to Mark, who was already on the phone with the police. My dad got out first, then my mom. Then, to my horror, Pastor Jim and two other men from the church, they huddled briefly before approaching the building. Intercom buzzed a minute later. We stayed silent. It buzzed again, more insistently. Then my phone rang. My mom, I declined the call. She immediately called back. This continued for several minutes, the intercom and my phone creating a terrifying duet. Finally, blue lights flashed outside. Two police officers approached my parents' group. I couldn't hear what was said, but there was clearly an argument. Pastor Jim gestured emphatically toward the building. One of the officers shook his head. After what felt like hours, my parents and their church friends got back in their cars and left, the police watching until they were gone. One of the officers came up to take our statement. He was young, maybe mid-20s, with kind eyes and a serious expression. He introduced himself as Officer Joseph Miller. I showed him the threatening texts and explained the situation. Unfortunately, we see this kind of family dispute more often than you'd think, he said. The restraining order will help, but in the meantime, I'd suggest staying somewhere they don't know about. After he left, Mark, Stephen, and I had a long discussion. Stephen offered to let us stay as long as needed, but we all agreed it wasn't safe now that my parents knew the location. Mark suggested his friend Michelle's cabin about an hour outside the city. She used it mainly on weekends and had offered it to us earlier. We'll go tomorrow, Mark decided. Pack only what we need. I'll call Michelle tonight. I nodded, exhausted but grateful. As I checked on Lily one last time before trying to sleep, I found myself wondering how my life had come to this. Hiding from my own parents, moving from place to place like fugitives. All because I got pregnant at 17 and refused to live by their rules anymore. The next morning, we packed quickly. Stephen promised to check on Mark's apartment regularly and forward any important mail. As we were loading the car, Officer Miller pulled up. Thought I'd check in, he said, getting out of his patrol car. Any more trouble last night? We told him our plans to leave temporarily. He nodded approvingly. Smart move. By the way, I ran the plates on your parents' car. They've been parked near this building several times in the past week, according to parking enforcement records. My blood ran cold. They've been watching us. Officer Miller nodded grimly. Looks that way. I'd suggest taking a different route out of town, just to be safe. We thanked him and finished packing. Just as we were about to leave, Stephen's neighbor Blake stopped by. Hey, just wanted to let you know. Some lady was asking about you guys yesterday. Showed me a photo of the baby. Said she was the grandmother. Stephen frowned. What did you tell her? Blake shrugged. Nothing. I don't know you guys that well, and she seemed off somehow. Too intense, you know? I thanked him for the warning, my anxiety ratcheting up another notch. They weren't just watching us. They were questioning neighbors, showing photos of Lily around. The thought made me sick. We took a roundabout route to Michelle's cabin, checking the rearview mirror constantly for any sign of my parents' car. The cabin was small but comfortable, nestled among pine trees with a small lake nearby. Under different circumstances, it would have been a peaceful retreat. That evening, as Mark prepared dinner and Lily napped, I sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. For a moment, I allowed myself to imagine a future where we weren't running, where Lily could grow up without looking over her shoulder, where I could finish my education and build a life on my own terms. The peace was shattered by my phone buzzing with a new email. It was from my mom, with the subject line, "Final warning." The message was short. You know what's best for Lily? If you won't listen to reason, we'll have no choice but to take legal action. Pastor Jim knows a judge. I showed Mark when he called me in for dinner. He read it twice, his expression darkening. They're threatening to sue for custody, he said finally. I nodded, my appetite gone. Can they do that? Janet said they don't have a case. They probably don't, Mark agreed, but they can make your life hell trying. Court dates, legal fees, character witnesses. They'll drag everything into the open. Your age, your situation when Lily was born, living with me. I pushed my plate away, suddenly nauseous. What do? Mark was quiet for a moment, thinking we need to be proactive. Build a case that shows you're a fit mother with a stable support system, school records, medical documentation for Lily's care, character references. Over the next few days, that's exactly what we did. I gathered every document that showed I was responsible. Lily's perfect pediatrician reports, my GED certificate, the letter confirming my library job interview. Mark contacted friends who could vouch for my parenting skills. Even took photos of Lily's nursery at Mark's apartment, showing it was safe and appropriate. Meanwhile, my parents escalated their campaign. They created a Facebook group called Bring Lily Home, filled with manipulated stories about me being brainwashed by my uncle. They shared old photos of me as a child alongside Bible verses about lost sheep. Church members I'd never met posted about praying for Lily's salvation. One post particularly chilled me. My mom wrote, "Sometimes the Lord calls us to take action when words fail. Please pray for our family as we prepare to do what must be done." Janet advised us to print everything, creating a record of their harassment. This actually helps your case. Assured me, it shows they're unstable and willing to go to extreme lengths. A week into our stay at the cabin, I was beginning to feel safer. No one had followed us. No strange cars drove by. Lily was thriving in the peaceful environment, sleeping better than she had in weeks. I even started looking into online college courses, determined not to put my life on hold any longer. And one afternoon, while Mark was in town getting groceries and I was giving Lily a bath, I heard a car pull up outside. Thinking it was Mark returning, I didn't worry until I heard multiple car doors slam. Quickly wrapped Lily in a towel and peeked out the bathroom window. My heart stopped. My parents' car was parked beside another I recognized as Pastor Jim's. My mom, dad, the pastor, and two church elders were walking toward the cabin, their expressions determined. I grabbed my phone and Lily, rushing to lock the front door, but I was too late. The door swung open and they walked in like they owned the place. "Rebecca," my mom said, her voice falsely sweet. "We've come to take you and Lily home." I froze in the hallway, clutching Lily to my chest. She was still wet from her bath, wrapped only in a towel and starting to fuss from the sudden movement. My mind raced, trying to figure out how they'd found us. Michelle's cabin was supposed to be our safe place. "How did you find us?" I asked, backing up slowly toward the bedroom. If I could just get in there and lock the door, I could call Mark or the police. My dad stepped forward. "The Lord guides those who seek to do his work," he said. But my mom's expression gave away the real answer. "Stephen told you," I realized. "Our friend, who'd been so helpful, had betrayed us. You manipulated him somehow." My mom had the decency to look slightly guilty. "We simply explained our concerns as Lily's grandparents. He understood once we showed him the Facebook posts about your situation." Pastor Jim moved closer, his hands outstretched like he was approaching a wild animal. "Becca, we're here to help you. You're young, confused. Living in sin with that man has clouded your judgment. I clutched Lily tighter. She was fully crying now, probably sensing my fear. Mark is my uncle and Lily's great uncle. There's no sin happening here. The two church elders exchanged glances. One of them, a tall man with a gray beard, spoke up. Your parents have told us everything. How he corrupted you, turned you against your family and faith. That's not what happened, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. They kicked me out when I got pregnant. Mark took me in when I had nowhere to go. My dad's face hardened. We made a mistake. We're trying to fix it now. I backed up as far as I could, my shoulders hitting the wall. The bedroom door was still several feet away. By breaking into his cabin, by stalking us, that's not fixing anything. Pastor Jim stepped closer. Rebecca, give the baby to your mother. We're going to take you both home where you belong. I shook my head, panic rising in my throat. Number, you can't just take her. That's kidnapping. My dad scoffed. It's not kidnapping when it's family trying to protect a child. Actually, it is. The voice came from behind them. We all turned to see Mark standing in the doorway, grocery bags at his feet, phone in hand. I've already called the police. They're on their way. Relief flooded through me at the sight of him. My dad lunged toward Mark, but the pastor grabbed his arm, holding him back. This doesn't concern you. Mr. Jim said coldly. This is a family matter. Mark stepped fully into the cabin, his voice steady. I am family and you're trespassing. My mom moved toward me, arms outstretched for Lily. Just give her to me, Rebecca. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I turned sideways, shielding Lily with my body. Don't touch her. Don't touch us. The standoff continued for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. No one moved. Lily's cries had quieted to whimpers. I could hear birds outside, the wind in the trees, so normal compared to the tension inside. Finally, sirens wailed in the distance. My parents and their church friends exchanged panicked looks. We should go, one of the elders said nervously. This isn't the right approach. Pastor Jim shook his head. Number, we came here to save this child. We're not leaving without her. The sirens grew louder. Mark moved to stand between me and the group. The police will be here any minute. You're breaking multiple laws right now. Trespassing, harassment, attempted kidnapping. Is that really what you want? My dad's face was red with anger. We have rights as grandparents. Not like this you don't, Mark replied calmly. The siren stopped and car doors slammed outside. My parents and the church members looked at each other, clearly unsure what to do. Pastor Jim made one last attempt, his voice urgent. Rebecca, think about Lily's soul. Your parents can give her a godly upbringing. What can he offer her? Before I could answer, two police officers entered the cabin, hands on their holsters. One was Officer Miller, who'd helped us before. He took in the scene quickly. What's going on here? He asked, though his expression suggested he already knew. Mark explained the situation. My parents had somehow found our location, broken in, and tried to take Lily. The pastor tried to interrupt several times, but Officer Miller shut him down. Sir, I'm going to need you and everyone else who doesn't live here to step outside, he said firmly. My parents protested, claiming they were just trying to help their daughter and granddaughter. The second officer, a woman with short dark hair, wasn't having it. Outside, now, or you'll be leaving in handcuffs. Reluctantly, they filed out. I stayed inside with Lily, while Mark spoke with the officers on the porch. Through the window, I could see my parents gesturing angrily, the pastor trying to look reasonable, the church elders standing awkwardly to the side. After about 20 minutes, Mark came back inside. They're leaving, he said. The officers are escorting them off the property. I collapsed onto the couch, still holding Lily. What happens now? Mark sat beside me. Officer Miller is filing a report. With this and the previous incidents, we have a strong case for the restraining order. They also suggested we press charges for breaking and entering. I watched through the window as my parents and their church friends got into their cars, the police cruiser waiting behind them. Will charges actually stop them? They think they're on a mission from God. Mark sighed. Maybe not, but legal consequences might make them think twice. The next few days were tense. We stayed at the cabin, but it no longer felt safe. I jumped at every sound. Mark installed a security camera that connected to our phones so we could see if anyone approached. Janet filed emergency paperwork to expedite the restraining order. 3 days after the break-in, we got the news. The judge had granted a temporary restraining order. My parents and Pastor Jim couldn't come within 500 feet of me, Lily, or our residence. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it was something. That night, as I was putting Lily to bed, my phone rang with an unknown number. Normally, I wouldn't answer, but something told me I should. It was Stephen. Rebecca, I'm so sorry, he said immediately. I didn't tell them where you were, I swear. But they came to my apartment, said they were worried sick. They showed me Facebook posts about you being in danger, said your uncle was keeping you isolated. I sat on the edge of the bed, anger and disappointment washing over me. So you told them about Michelle's cabin? I didn't give them the address, he said, his voice pleading. Just mentioned you were staying at a friend's cabin. I had no idea they'd track it down. I wasn't sure if I believed him. How did they find us then? Stephen hesitated. They might have gone through my mail. There was a thank you card from Michelle with her address on it. I closed my eyes, exhausted. Even our friends weren't safe from my parents' manipulation. I can't talk to you right now, Stephen. I need to think. After hanging up, I told Mark about the call. He wasn't as angry as I expected. They're good at what they do, he said, manipulating people, twisting the truth. Stephen probably thought he was helping. The restraining order gave us some breathing room. We returned to Mark's apartment, which now had new locks and a security system. Went to my library job interview and got the position. Mark helped me enroll in online classes for the fall semester. Slowly, we established a new normal. My parents tested the boundaries of the restraining order, of course. They sent letters through church members. They parked just beyond the 500-foot limit and watched the apartment. They created new social media accounts when I blocked their old ones, but they couldn't approach us directly, which was all that mattered. One afternoon, about a month after the cabin incident, I was walking home from the library with Lily in her stroller when a woman approached us. I tensed, ready to call for help, but she wasn't from my parents' church. Rebecca, she asked. I'm Jennifer. I was in your parents' congregation until recently. I kept my distance, suspicious. What do you want? She looked nervous. I wanted to warn you. Your parents and Pastor Jim are planning something. I don't know exactly what, but they've been meeting privately, talking about saving Lily from corruption and doing what the law won't. My heart raced. Why are you telling me this? Jennifer twisted her hands together. As I left that church for a reason. The control, the fear tactics, it's not right. And what they're doing to you isn't right either. I thanked her for the warning and hurried home, looking over my shoulder the whole way. When I told Mark, he immediately called Janet and Officer Miller. They both took the threat seriously, but said there wasn't much they could do without specific information. Keep the security system armed, Officer Miller advised. Document any suspicious activity. Maybe consider staying somewhere else for a while just to be safe. But I was tired of running. This is our home, I told Mark that night as we ate dinner. I'm not letting them chase us away again. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. Then we'll make it as secure as possible. The next week passed without incident. I started to wonder if Jennifer's warning had been a false alarm. Then, one evening, as Mark was reading to Lily before bed, the security system chimed. Someone was at the door. I checked the camera feed on my phone. It was my mom alone. No dad, no pastor, no church members. Just her standing there with her hands clasped in front of her. It's my mom, I told Mark, my voice tight. She's by herself. Mark frowned. The restraining order, I know. I stared at her image on the screen. She looked different somehow. Smaller, less certain. What should I do? Mark handed Lily to me. That's up to you. But I'll be right here. I took a deep breath and went to the door, keeping the chain on as I opened it a crack. You're violating the restraining order, I said by way of greeting. My mom's eyes filled with tears. I know, I'll leave if you want me to. I needed to see you. Something in her voice made me pause. Where's Dad? And Pastor Jim? I don't know, she said. And I was surprised to realize I believed her. I left. I stared at her through the crack in the door. What do you mean you left? She looked down at her hands. I left your father and the church. It's been building for a while. The things they wanted to do, the way they talked about you and Lily and Mark, it wasn't right. I didn't know what to say. This was so far from what I'd expected. Why should I believe you? You shouldn't, she said simply. I haven't earned that. But I'm staying with my sister in Oak Ridge. I filed for divorce. And I wanted to tell you I'm sorry. Everything. I closed the door, leaning my forehead against it. Mark appeared beside me, Lily in his arms. What do you think? He asked quietly. I don't know, I admitted. It could be another trick. Mark nodded. It could be, or she could be telling the truth. I thought about it for a long moment, then handed Lily to Mark and opened the door again, still with the chain on. I can't let you in, I told my mom. The restraining order is still in effect. She nodded, wiping tears from her cheeks. I understand, but I continued. If you're serious about this, we can meet somewhere public, with Mark and Lily, and we can talk. Hope flickered across her face. I'd like that. This doesn't fix everything. I warned her, I don't trust you. I don't know if I ever will again. I know, she said softly, but it's a start. After she left, I sat on the couch, emotions swirling. Mark didn't push me to talk, just sat beside me in silent support. Do you think people can really change? I finally asked. He considered the question carefully. I think they can, but it's rare, and it usually happens slowly with a lot of work. I nodded, thinking about my mom's tear-stained face. I guess we'll find out. We met my mom at a coffee shop the following week. Mark came with me, and we brought Lily. I was tense the whole time, watching for signs of my dad or anyone from the church. But it was just my mom, sitting alone at a corner table, looking nervous. The conversation was awkward at first. She asked about Lily, about my job, about my classes. I gave short answers, still wary. But as time passed, I began to see subtle differences in her. The judgmental edge was gone from her voice. She didn't quote scripture or mention God's plan. And when she looked at Mark, there was shame in her eyes, not disgust. Been seeing a therapist, she told us toward the end of our meeting. Someone not connected to the church. She's helping me understand how wrong so much of what we did was. I didn't fully trust her transformation. It seemed too sudden, too convenient. But I couldn't deny the relief I felt seeing her without my dad and Pastor Jim's influence. We agreed to meet again in 2 weeks. Same place, same rules. As we were leaving, she asked if she could hug Lily. I hesitated, then nodded, watching carefully as she gently embraced my daughter. She's beautiful, my mom whispered. You're doing a wonderful job with her. Simple words, spoken without qualification or judgment, meant more than any elaborate apology. Over the next few months, we established a cautious routine, coffee shop meetings every other week, my mom slowly earning small measures of trust. She never asked to be alone with Lily, never pushed for more than I was willing to give. She sent birthday and Christmas gifts, but understood when I said I wasn't ready for her to attend celebrations. My dad tried to contact me once during this time, leaving a voicemail full of scripture and warnings about my mother's mental instability. I deleted it without responding. Pastor Jim and the church elders eventually gave up their campaign, finding new targets for their righteous concern. A year after the cabin incident, I finished my first year of college with straight A's. Lily was walking and talking, a bright, curious toddler who loved books and music. Mark had started dating a kind man named Noah who brought Lily little stuffed animals and taught her silly songs. And my mom? She was still working on herself, still making amends. Our relationship would never be what it once was, but it was becoming something new, something built on respect rather than fear and obligation. One evening, as Mark, Noah, Lily, and I ate dinner on our small balcony, I looked around at this unconventional family we'd created. Not perfect, not without scars, but solid. Real, you okay? Mark asked, noticing my thoughtful expression. I smiled, watching Lily giggle as Noah pretended her broccoli was a tiny tree. Yeah, I said, I really am.